Whitemarsh Township for allowing us to use our facilities again tonight. Thank you very much for all the elected officials who are here. Do we have elected officials from Springfield and Whitemarsh who I did not have a chance to talk to? Okay, we're on our own. We do have Ken Lawrence here, County Commissioner. This is a county project. My name is Crystal Gilchrist. I'm a transportation planner for Montgomery County. And with me tonight is Matt Edmond, who I just made sit down. Ready to go. He's the transportation section chief for Montgomery County Planning. Susan Metzger-Cologne is our engineer with County Roads and Bridges. Sid New is with Gannett Fleming. He's the traffic analysis individual engineer. Paul Linehan, Paul Valliere, both also with Gannett Fleming. They are the project engineers. Paul Linehan is our project manager. And then the other staff from the county, Matt Popek, Jana Rakucci, both transportation planners from the county. Happy to answer any of your questions as we go forward. I'm going to try to move through this fairly quickly. It was supposed to be a brief presentation, but things do get stretched out. So we'll move forward. Okay, there are all the names if you need spelling for the news people in the room. I want to start to kind of recap the entire Ridge Pike project. Is this too loud? We're getting feedback.
It's pretty bad.
Somebody's put it further away. Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is all of Ridge Pike from Norristown to Philadelphia. Montgomery County owns this piece of roadway. We're one of the few counties in the state that actually owns roadways. Section A is complete. If you're familiar with the new Wawa up towards Norristown, that's the relocation of Conshohocken Road. There will someday soon there'll be a turnpike interchange in that section, but Section A is done. Sections B, C, D, and E are that section from Conshohocken Road to the Blue Route. There's a lot happening in there. We've got major railroads to get over. We've got the turnpike to coordinate with. We've got a Sunoco pipeline that we have to deal with, plus the Blue Route and some other major bridges. So that section has been in engineering for some time. We are getting to the point where we're trying to wrap up the engineering and the right-of-way acquisition in those sections so that we can go to construction in the next couple of years. Section F currently is the section from Butler Pike to Crescent Avenue. We just are in the process of hiring engineers to get started on that section with preliminary engineering. So that was just getting underway, and you all are in Section G. Section G starts at Crescent Avenue, goes all the way to the city, and it's not a huge long section, but there's a lot of stuff going on there, and that's what we're going to talk about tonight. We are wrapping up preliminary engineering now. We still have final engineering to get through, and right-of-way acquisition before we get to construction. So we'll talk about the schedule as we go forward. This is the map I showed you all last June. It shows the current scope of the project from Crescent to Northwestern. That's going to change a little bit from our conversation tonight. This was the graphic that showed all the different problems that we're going to try to address in this project. We've got
Key turning movements, a lot of different places, at Crescent, at Barron Hill, certainly at Harts and Church. We've got poor pavement conditions throughout. We've got an alignment that kind of shifts back and forth that makes traffic a little more tricky. There's no drainage really included in this roadway at this point. Ridge Pike originally literally goes back to the colonial days when it was a turnpike. It was first paved in the 30s, we think, and some widening was done in the 1970s. So other than that, there hasn't been a whole lot done to upgrade this road for a long time. I won't say since colonial days, but for a long time. And we plan to undo some of that disrepair going forward. And then finally, the one thing that we're committed to also including is a sidewalk so that our pedestrians and transit users have a safe way to get to and from their locations. Now, I know you don't need any reminders of what conditions are like out there, but these are the slides from last year's presentation. We talked about congestion, where we lose the one lane, it drops down. 2 lanes merge to one, more congestion pictures here. Turning movements at Church and Harts are really very difficult, very precarious, at the least, they're precarious. And then here again, you can see where there certainly are bus stops, but there's no sidewalk where you can safely get to those bus stops. So those are the types of conditions that we really want to try to address going forward. You might recognize yourself in this picture here. Last June, we had a very well-attended public meeting. We had a big crowd. Lots of people had lots of questions, and we tried to listen to them as best we could and work through some of those issues. Underneath are all the individual the bigger property owners along the corridor that we have met with. Some of them we've met with numerous times to try to figure out how we can work through their properties as we go through this design problem. And then also we have monthly meetings with staff from Whitemarsh and Springfield townships so that everything that we're doing gets bounced off the local staff on a regular basis. We haven't made any decisions that your local folks aren't aware of. So this was the graphic that showed our original preliminary considerations as to what we were going to try to do. We were going to add the second travel lane all the way from Northwestern to Crescent. Those of you who drive this road every day, I think will agree that that second lane is really critically needed. We're going to add the sidewalk along the south side, and you can see in those cross sections, those little boxes, you can kind of see where the sidewalk is going to go. We're going to do stormwater management because there's none out there now, and we're going to put in new signals, a few new signals, and coordinate the traffic controls along the entire section. So that's where we started last June with our conversation. A lot of things have happened over the last year. So this is the first, we took that large roll plan and we broke it down into smaller pieces that we could blow up bigger. So that way you could see more detail. These are the slides on the boards around the room that you had a chance to talk to the engineers and all about. So we're going to talk a few minutes about each of them. Down here in the corner, you see the cross section, 4 lanes, 2 in each direction, and the sidewalk on the south side. And you'll probably also notice there's a cemetery on the south side. I think most of you are aware of that. We have been in several conversations with St. Peter's Church. Their congregational committee has had a very good talk with us about the potential need to move the wall and possibly relocate some people who are buried there. They have done something similar when they put the addition onto their church, so they're familiar with the process. They didn't indicate to us that they were averse to working with us to make this happen, and they also have space available on the south side cemetery annex, the 20th century side. So unless a family would choose to move their loved one to a new location completely, we should be able to just relocate people right in the same cemetery, but to a safer place away from the road. We want to talk about that a little bit more in a second. The main thing I want to talk to you about in this section is you'll notice that our our colors don't go all the way to Crescent Avenue. That's because over the last year, we started to have a conversation with the folks at PennDOT. Now this is a 100% county project on a county road, but it parallels the expressway, the Schuylkill Expressway. And when there's an emergency or an accident or some kind of incident on the expressway, Ridge Pike is the go-to alternative. You've probably all experienced that. When things get backed up, the volumes go through the roof over here. PennDOT would like to make a change in how the traffic signals are managed. Currently, all the traffic signals in Pennsylvania are owned and maintained by the municipality that they're located in. It's all municipal control. PennDOT still gets to approve where they go. PennDOT still gets to approve how they operate, but they're owned and maintained by the municipality. In this particular case, along Ridge Pike, because it's so critical as an alternative route for the Schuylkill Expressway, PennDOT has a project that they're working through themselves to take back management of all the signals on Ridge Pike between the city, or coming out of the city, including the city signals, all the way out to probably the Blue Route. In doing that, they then get to control what kind of improvements go along with those traffic signals. And when we talked to them about the traffic signal at Crescent Avenue and our plan to not widen the road there to put in a left turn lane, they were concerned. Because one of the things that we all kind of agreed on was that we should eliminate left turns from Ridge Pike onto Church Road or Harts Lane. It's a really bad spot to make left turns. You don't have clearance, you have a lot of traffic, and very few people are actually making those turns. The numbers from the traffic counts are very low. So we figure we can eliminate those left turns there and shift those people who are making those left turns to the next intersections out so that they can kind of come in the back way. So if you're headed east, you would turn left at Crescent to Germantown Pike to Church Road that way. Much safer way to go. If you're headed west and you need to get to Harts Lane, you would need to make the turn onto Barron Hill and come up Harts Lane from Barron Hill, because you will not be able to make a left turn here any longer. Those of you who still make this left turn from time to time may feel that you've got a long detour to get around if we would take that left away, but I think most of your neighbors and people in your community are already making that change because it just feels safer to go a little bit further to make the turn. How did that complicate our project? Well, like I said before, this is a 100% county project, 100% county money. We did not gather any of the engineering data needed to add a left turn lane at Crescent Avenue because we weren't planning to do that. We would have to stop our current process and go collect all that information all the way back to wherever that left turn lane would end, plus the tapers that are required to get you back to the regular roadway. So that would delay our project, and it would extend our project, and it would increase the cost of our project. So because PennDOT is going to pay for the next section, mostly for the next section, we'll let them pay for the signal too. So we cut our project at the cemetery. All of Crescent Avenue will become part of that Section F section that we looked at in the big map, and that will all get incorporated into the next set of engineering. And that makes sense because when you put in a left turn lane, it's not just the 100 feet of the left turn lane that you have to deal with, but you've got to move traffic slowly and carefully out of the way for that, and then you have to move them back at the other side. So there are a lot of tapers that need to be involved there. So that's going to, Crescent Avenue becomes part of Section F. We are just in the process of hiring those engineers now. They should be on board within the next couple months, and we will get started on the preliminary engineering for that section. So some of you may want to come back when we have those public meetings for Section F to hear how this and the Pine Ridge intersections are going to get dealt with in the next section.
Why was it turned to Section F?
These are just the letters.
So there was an address to that?
No. We just started at A and went to G.
Oh, I see. You're saying it's now part of Section F.
Yeah.
Not a Section F. Got it.
No Section 4F. no, yeah, that's a whole different thing.
I was gonna say.
No, Section F. Okay, let's get back here. Okay, so just to let you know what we're looking at here a little bit, the orange line is the sidewalk that we plan to install. The green areas are areas of grading, or it's that 3-foot space between the curb line and the sidewalk. We're going to try to put a little green space between the sidewalk and the curb, give pedestrians a little buffer. And then you can, the blue lines are the new curb line, the new edge of the roadway. Back to Norristown with you. Bill Cosby's waiting. My window looks out at the courthouse. I have watched news vans for 2 days. It's kind of crazy. I suspect I'll see a few more. The blue line is the new curb line. And then this red or pink line here, that's the proposed new wall that we're going to move back to the cemetery. And you see here, this is the existing wall location right up against the curb. No clear zone at all for these cars. So we're going to push that wall back, add a sidewalk, and a new wall. We've talked to the church extensively about this operation. We have talked to them about the most efficient way to build this wall to impact as little space into the cemetery as possible. They're on board with that. And you can see here, there's one headstone here. That's the closest one to the road. And then you get into the second row, and the third row, and the fourth. We know we're going to have some temporary construction associated with this wall, close to the wall, but we are going to do everything we can to kind of keep it within that first row, maybe two, depending on how they're positioned under the headstones. We do not plan to touch anything else back here. Nothing else beyond what we absolutely have to touch to construct this wall. Now, there's quite a lengthy process that we are learning about in terms of actually moving an interred person to a new location. We are going to follow that to the letter. We have a solicitor on our staff who's going to keep us in line on that. We're also coordinating with the folks at PennDOT and Federal Highways Administration in terms of what this process needs to be. We think the project or the process will require us to contact next of kin. Even if it doesn't, it's our plan to try to do that anyway. We don't want anyone to come visit a loved one and find out they're not where they used to be. So we're going to do everything in our power to make sure that this part of the process is as open and as thoughtful of the people who are interred here as we can possibly make it. But there is a process to go through to move people for these types of projects. We'll know more about exactly what we need to do there once we get through the final design.
Before you move on, that intersection where you don't want the left turns, would it possible to put a sign there restricting them from like 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. like you do no turn on reds? For those of us that use that, make a left.
Yeah.
You said you weren't going to do that. You changed your mind. So.
Well, once we started talking to PennDOT about the signals, it became apparent that if we were going to put any left turns here or allow left turns here, PennDOT would push for left turn lanes. And if we try to put left turn lanes in here, we're going to be in John's front office and your kitchen. So the decision was made to move those left turns elsewhere, and I understand it's going to probably affect some of your clients.
They're not going to listen to it anyway. They make turns there anyhow.
Well,
There's a certain sign there for trucks not to turn.
right. At least during the peak hour when the traffic is the highest, hopefully people will abide by it and not back things up. I agree with you.
Signs are a good idea.
Yeah, people, yeah, some will, some absolutely will. But because of the right-of-way that would have been required to actually put a full left turn lane in here and the impacts to the historic side of Ridge Pike as well as those properties on the south side that are right up against the road as well, we made that decision to forego the left turn lane. It certainly would be better for traffic flow, there's no doubt about it. But we didn't want to have that kind of impact on your community. We didn't want to blow out half the community just to move traffic faster. So we're going to ask people to make their left turns at a little different location so that this part of your community can remain intact for the most part and keep that historic character that it's got now. Did that answer the question?
Not really. Is it decided already?
Pardon me?
Is the decision firm?
Probably pretty firm. PennDOT won't, if PennDOT takes back all the signals, they then have the final say in all the improvements that are made. And PennDOT's in the job of moving cars, not preserving historic communities. So if we allow left turns here, they're going to push hard for an expanded roadway that include left turn lanes. And that's going to have a devastating effect on the south side of the road there, the properties on the south side. We would probably end up taking whole properties at that point because we would be right up against people's front doors.
You can have mine.
You can have your house, thanks, John. Well, we're not through final design yet, so I can't say that it absolutely will not change. But our goal was not to take whole properties. So that's kind of why we made that decision. I do think once people get used to the restriction, it'll just become part of your daily travel pattern. If you're making left turns there now during the peak hour, you really are kind of taking your life in your hands. So I wouldn't advocate it now. So there are alternatives, and we'll with the enhanced signal systems that'll be out there, it should be easier. So, okay. So this is the next section. We call this the Hollids section for obvious reasons. In this section, we still have the historic district along the north side. The Smith property, even though it's undeveloped, is historic. We have moved our alignment further to the north onto the Smith property than we originally had planned, but we still have the sidewalk here on the south side. We'll be working through that process with the Hollids and their hardware store operation to make sure that they stay in business. Don't stop going to Hollids because the road's going to be in construction. They need you to keep coming back. So not too much of a big change through here other than the sidewalk and the addition of the extra lane. Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, that's my property right there, Ridge.
This one?
Is something happening there?
We'll need to talk with you more directly. The green areas have to do with where we need to do grading, and I think your property slopes away from the road in front of your house. We're going to have to do some adjustment to your front yard a little bit to make this work. Yours house the one with the pillars out front?
It's that one right there.
Right, but do you have the pillars out front? The stone?
Yeah.
Okay. We're definitely going to need to come to talk with you because I think we need to move your pillars. I'll get, if after this is...
There's no widening of the road there or putting a sidewalk in.
No sidewalk on the north side. You can see that the curb line is just a smidge off the existing curb line through here. The old road is about here, the new one's here. We'll talk. You bet. So moving forward, grading along the Smith property, still just a 4-lane cross section, no center left turn lane or anything like that. As we come up the hill from the Hollids section, we come up to the Barron Hill section. Here's Masonic Village and their driveway. This is where we are doing the most relocation of Ridge Pike. We're pulling it to the north to smooth out this curve, because if you drive out there now, you notice that you kind of do this as you go through that area, which is also one of the reasons people end up in the utility pole over here from time to time. So we'll clean that up a little bit, but that is going to require some grading along this bank on the Smith property, and that's what the green is. This is, again, coming up the hill. We have to tie the road into the existing grade, and this is another property. I know these are new residents. I don't know, are there new residents of this house here? we'll need to make friends with them here real soon. Barron Hill, we're going to put a signal in here. Here's that new left turn lane that's going to go in there. Now, last year when we spoke, we said we were considering a right turn lane and a shared left and right turn lane, so that we could get 2 right turn lanes coming out of Barron Hill to carry that traffic faster. We did the traffic analysis, and one of the things that you have to keep in mind when you have a shared right turn lane, and there's another movement involved there, is you cannot have right turn on red, because it's too confusing. You've got 2 lanes jockeying for position, some are turning left, some are turning right. So you have to eliminate the entire right turn on red option. And you also can't allow right turns to continue while this left turn is going. Because again, if you've got a shared left and right, the person in the inner lane doesn't know if they can go or just the right turn. I mean, it's too confusing. So we tried the analysis with a dedicated left turn and a dedicated right turn, which allows us to account for continued movement and right turn on red, and also allows us to have that shared phase where the left turns are going here, but the right turns are still going here. It works better than if we had 2 right turn lanes. So the analysis, based on that analysis, we went back to 2 designated lanes, 1 right turn, 1 left turn, and that way those right turners will move through a good portion of that traffic signal when now they can't. So that should be better. But you can also see we have to drop Barron Hill Road to meet Ridge Pike. So there is a lot of grading involved in this section too. Any questions here before I go on? Sir?
You talk about Manor, I guess you say Barron Hill Road. I assume you probably do some retaining walls and that road knock down a couple of elevations? Not?
We haven't planned on retaining walls at this point. We have if you can see from this diagram here, we are planning on, this is the worst case section of the grading. It looks like a lot. It is a lot. We have been speaking with the Chubb property folks as well as Masonic Home. We can probably consider some changes to this design. We have regulations that require or dictate how steep that slope can be. And if we do all grading, this is according to those regulations. Perhaps we can work something else out that doesn't require so much, particularly on the side of the residential properties. That's something we'll work through on final design. I know this is a new property owner. The house was for sale for a while, so we definitely need to talk to the folks on this corner too. We haven't spoken to them yet, but it'll be signalized eventually. Yes, sir.
Why are sidewalks only on the south side?
Sidewalks are only on the south side, mainly because of this historic district.
Why?
And because the properties on the north side are so close to the road. There are places where if we tried to put a sidewalk, it would have to like go over people's porches to carry on. Or their living room.
And the question is, and I can speak directly to this after the motorcyclist ran into me and destroyed me years ago, such a driveway. I can no longer drive, and I depend on the 27 bus, as yes, a lot of people. I have to walk through. So I don't see anything here indicating where future bus stops might be.
If the 27 buses are This is the current bus stop here, I think. This is the next section of Ridge Pike. Barron Hill's off this side. This is where the bus stop currently is about, I think. And you're right, people walk across the middle of Ridge Pike to get to that bus stop. We are moving the bus stops to Manor Road.
So are you trying to get the bus stops close to a light?
We want the buses to stop at a traffic signal where the pedestrian can push the pedestrian button and get a pedestrian phase in the signal so they can cross without having to play Frogger between the cars.
Because of all the recent deaths at Northwestern, it's a huge issue. And I can see the need for the sidewalks. But if you're on the north side,
I agree with you, sir. I agree with you. There's just not, some places there is space to put sidewalk, but then you run into sections where you cannot put sidewalk. And the feeling is you don't want to entice a pedestrian onto a sidewalk that then ends at the middle of a block and forces them to cross the street. It's new thinking, 21st century stuff. So rather than put sidewalks on the north side piecemeal, we are focusing on getting a wide, consistent sidewalk along the south side the entire length. Does that leave the north side without sidewalks? Yes, yes. There are some places where we could fit in some more pieces, but we can't do a consistent sidewalk on the north from end to end without having some serious problems with at some locations.
thank you.
Yep. So this is the Manor Road piece. Yes, John.
Speaking of bus stops, you're talking about doing one at Harts Lane and Ridge Pike. You go back a couple slides.
Oops, I'm going the wrong way. Yeah.
Is that still in the thinking?
Well, there is a bus stop in that area now, and we would like to put it at the intersection where people can cross with the signal. So yeah, we're still looking at trying to place it here on this corner.
Which corner are you thinking about?
Well, we were talking about your corner.
The only concern, we're talking about that, is when people come over that hill, they're not going to see that bus.
The bus.
There. If we have FedEx or UPS trucks that'll stop there, not for us, but for neighbors.
Yeah.
And you can't see them when you come up over the ridge.
Okay.
So
All right.
The other corner, but that's John's corner, not to put it on you, John, but it's only a matter of time until somebody gets rear-ended there.
SEPTA has some very special concerns for bus stops. They like to be after the signal, because then once people are loaded or discharged, they can just go. It's easier for their scheduling. But in this particular case, we might talk to them about trying to do the other side.
When the bus block the intersection, because it would have to stop
It would have to be far enough advanced that it doesn't stick out into the intersection.
down further.
Yeah, which is more of your problem.
Yeah, which
Makes it worse.
more of a problem
Yeah.
than coming over the hill.
Right. That's good information to have, and we'll go back to SEPTA and we'll talk to them about that as we go forward.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Regarding the signalization at Ridge and Barron Hill, currently the traffic backs up in the evening rush hour all the way to Crescent Ave, and sometimes beyond. What will the signalization of that intersection do to the traffic congestion on Barron Hill at rush hour?
What we hope to do is connect all these signals so they act as a group and not stop and go as you get to each signal. So it should be set up so in the morning it progresses in the eastbound direction, in the afternoon it progresses in the westbound direction, meaning that if traffic maintains a standard speed, that they can generally move through all these signals. We're widening the road so there'll be 2 through lanes. That has a huge impact on the number of cars that can move through this intersection at one time. And we're allowing a lot of the northbound right turns on Barron Hill to continue during the green cycle for Ridge Pike. It should operate better than it does now.
So what do your studies show about the traffic flow with the signals versus as they are now?
We're going to talk about that at the end of this a little bit, and I'm going to let our traffic engineer discuss that in more detail. But I'd like to kind of look at the whole corridor together, if you don't mind. Okay.
One just detail is that typically when things are backed up at 5:30, there are a number of cars that will make a U-turn on Barron Hill and then go over to Harts Lane to go wherever it is they have to go. It is a real problem, and it's a real, I would hope that the signals don't compound the issue.
It should make it better. It really should make it better. People who are frustrated sitting in traffic do crazy things. And we're trying to minimize that frustration as much as possible. It's still a roadway that carries 30,000 cars a day. So there's going to be periods when there's congestion, even with these improvements. We can't just eliminate that altogether. It's a very busy road. But it should be way better, lots better, lots and lots better.
Thank you.
Real quick question. The hatched yellow to the left, to the west.
At the top here?
Yeah. No, in the middle of the road.
Oh, that, yeah.
Is that a barrier or?
No, that'll just be paint. That's the gore striping. So you have a left turn lane here, but you have to carry your through lane straight across.
Oh, got it.
So this is that space in the middle, the taper that I was talking about earlier.
Thank you.
Yep, you have to get traffic back to their original path. And then here we come down to Manor. This section has already been widened considerably. Last year when you were all here, we had lots and lots of conversations about how the signal at Manor was working, and you all let us know very clearly that it was not working properly. Those of you who were here last year remember that conversation. After that meeting, we coordinated with PennDOT and with Springfield. We made some revisions to that signal. I think it's working better now. Once we get all the lane configurations adjusted, then we'll get the final operations of that road.
Is there any grading proposed in this area? The big issue is people running the red light signal before they hill.
Pardon me?
Will there be any grading in this area going up towards Northwestern?
All this green space is grading. All this is how we tie the road in.
I'm talking about the actual road itself.
Are we going to change the elevation of the roadway? Not to any degree, major degree, no. So this moves us into the Eagle View section. We have been I have a group of folks here that I call the East of Manor residents. Some of you are in the audience tonight. These folks have a real tough time getting out onto the roadway now because they're just because of the way the traffic is. We're going to be adding a second lane in this section, which is going to make it even harder for these folks to get out of their driveways. So what we are trying to do is speak to the Eagle View Homeowners Association folks about the option of turning these driveways backwards, closing them at Ridge Pike, and having these two folks share one little driveway here, and these two homes share one little driveway somewhere in these vicinities, so that they can come out onto a safe roadway, go to Manor, go to Ridge that way, rather than trying to constantly get out onto Ridge Pike here. And this particular homeowner currently has to back out into Ridge Pike to get out of her driveway.
Excuse me, that's not true. And so we are here, and that may have been like an off-the-cuff comment that was made, but I just think it's important that as we're presenting this, that these things are not presented as being true, right? So
it's true as I know it. I know she has permission to use the loop road of her neighbor.
Yeah, she can.
Right.
So we don't have to have, like, anything in perpetuity from the state to make something for a driveway for the next neighbor. She is a friend and 25 years.
Absolutely.
Can use my driveway anytime, and what we have done is take some of the hedge down, and she can turn around and come straight.
That's great. That's fabulous.
So I thought I'd like to bring that to your attention tonight.
Okay.
there's never been an accident in that.
25 years.
Well, our concern, I know you guys have a relationship worked out and an arrangement.
Oh, yeah.
Our concern is for when you are no longer there and Ms. Johnson is no longer there,
I'm concerned.
so we should have something formal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to.
I know you guys have it all worked out and you're pals and you don't have a problem with her using it, but someday you may sell, she may not live there anymore, and then there's going to be a whole new relationship to work out. So we'd like to have it formalized.
So, but part of that is our neighbor's property there. That's a significant part of her porch will be taken, and if she doesn't desire to have that,
I don't know if she's going to now. I don't know.
I don't think we need to take her porch. We had talked about that just to get her a sight distance so she could get out, but with this turnaround that we're proposing, we don't need to do that.
so, but if they choose not to have that, must it be, like, so if no one has asked for that or requested, and there haven't been any problems there, are you still suggesting that that's what you're going to move forward with?
That's what we'd like to talk about. Just because currently it may work fine, once there's another lane of traffic here, the dynamic's going to change a little bit, and we would love to have that homeowner have a safe space where they can back up and pull out forward.
But we already have those lanes there. Those are not new lanes.
No, this second lane eastbound is new.
But on their side of the street, so that's on the,
Right.
on the opposite side, so that's on the south side, but on the north side, those lanes are already there.
Okay, well, we had this conversation a while back. We had a meeting with the East of Manor residents. We can talk about this more later. We don't have to, we have a long way to go before we sign any papers for anything.
Okay.
So we have a lot of time to really work through what's best for you and your neighbor.
All right,
Okay?
thank you.
Question for you.
Yes, sir.
I can be very cynical.
Lay it on me.
After having the Army Corps of Engineers and DOT and I congratulate you for listening to us and coming up with solutions in the perspectives, and I think what you're proposing here is the best possible solution to an impossible problem.
Thank you.
We support you to the government. The one concern that I have is at the gun shop, that big parking lot is.
Yeah.
It is a nightmare at night, gangs hanging out there. And they play chicken going across the road.
Oh, fine.
It's really not fun, it's really something has to be done there to correct that behavior.
That's not something we can do as part of the road project. Yeah.
That's what I'll talk to you about that. But I do want to congratulate you for extensive work and lessons.
That's a local enforcement kind of issue that we can't help you with. Okay, moving on. Okay, so here's the last section of the roadway, the last piece of the Eagle View homeowners. The sidewalk continues and meets up with the sidewalk in Philadelphia. This is the city line here. This is the Meadowview Rehab Center where the woman was killed right here in the middle of Ridge Pike. We know that with that second lane there, traffic is likely to be even less likely to stop for a pedestrian. We did work with PennDOT after that, or not PennDOT, SEPTA, to relocate the bus stops. So now the bus stops are down here by the traffic signal, so a pedestrian can cross down there with the signal and they don't have to bolt across the road. They still have an issue with wanting to be where the bus driver can see them. We're working with Meadowview to come to a solution to this. We don't want to see any more pedestrians getting hit in the middle of our roadway going forward. But that's just a personal behavior type of thing that we have to get them to think differently about. But we have met with them extensively. We are having more recent conversations with the Eagle View Homeowners Association about our proposal to address these two driveways. That's all tentative. We have not engineered those in any way, shape, or form. It's just lines on a paper now to be a starting point for the conversation. So do we have anyone from the Eagle View homeowners here? We have, yeah?
I do have a question whether or not it's regard to volume, speed, or a lack of frontage that seems to be the issue with the existing driveways.
It's mostly lack of frontage. It's the two of the properties do have considerable space. They can get turned around and come out front, forwards. This particular property is going to be losing part of the driveway that allows them to turn around, and they will no longer be able to do that. So that property there is the hardest hit in terms of their access. This curve through here, and those of you who live there know that this little bitty curve doesn't look like much, but when people are coming out of the city at a high rate of speed, sometimes that's enough of a curve to cause a problem, and we do see crashes through this area. So in order to provide a safer alternative to these folks who are kind of trapped here in the middle. Our goal is to provide them safe access to the network. Like I said, it's all draft at this point. We haven't put anything on paper other than these pink lines. So during the final design phase is when we will work through all those details with those individual properties and with the Eagle View Homeowners Association. Yes, sir.
One thing. In terms of danger of any big driveways, but that's why I was asking about regrading. That's where the hill comes up.
Okay.
And it's been clearly established so many times that the issue really is that when someone's coming up that hill, you're trying to exit,
You can't see. Right.
And you can't regrade that road.
It's difficult to regrade a full length of roadway to lower it or raise it, yes. With the second lane, the sight distance should be better because the road is a little wider. You have more room to see people. But again, we would prefer if these folks had a safer alternative.
I just wanted to clarify, it's just not our property, but because there's so many issues that are involved there in that particular stretch. You're solving a huge problem for both.
We're trying.
Going
Yeah. We're hoping to solve a few problems anyway. You bet. Okay. So that takes us here to the northwestern section. We spoke a little bit about that. We're going to continue the sidewalk to match up with the Philly sidewalk. The curb line, we actually are going to give the folks on this corner a little extra yard to maintain when it's all said and done. This is really wide right here, and it gives the impression to folks driving out of the city that it is super wide as you make the turn. So if we pull the curb in to along the edge of the travel lane where it should be, it'll visually and psychologically let folks know that the road's not as wide open as they think. So these folks might get a little extra yard when it's all said and done. Not something that usually happens. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that you've got a significant amount of traffic coming off of Northwestern Avenue onto Ridge. You've got at least a dozen homes, you've got Meadowview, and you also have a lot of traffic going down to Fairmount Park. So even now, it's very difficult if you're facing out on toward Ridge to make a left-hand turn to go toward the city. And you just mentioned that now with the addition of 2 lanes, it's going to be similar to what are being facing the other side, where it's going to become more difficult. Right now, the only salvation is that it's a single lane that starts to merge into 2, and people can keep to the right and leave the left-hand lane open for turns off of Northwestern to come toward the city.
Oh.
So with 2 lanes all the way, that's going to go away, and all the signalization that you're talking about making things flow more easily, seems to me that it's going to become impossible to get out of Northwestern Avenue onto Ridge. So my proposal would be that you really need to think about, I know it would be difficult, but putting a light there.
A traffic signal there. One question. Sid, did we do counts here?
Did do counts there, right?
And did we meet any warrants?
Counts show that it doesn't meet the warrants. In order to install a traffic signal in Pennsylvania, you have to meet what's called a traffic signal warrant. And there's all different kinds of ones. The most common ones are tied to the volume in the intersection. You have to have enough volume coming out of Northwestern to justify putting in the signal. Right now, we don't have it.
Pep Boys was a signal that was put in the city years ago. It would never be approved today. But that's the city. We don't have any say over what they do in the city.
Follow-up question on that?
Yeah.
I understand that traffic count, certainly could be a reason that would justify a signal or not, but I think that an unsafe condition should also be a consideration. I mean, that is an unsafe condition today and will become less safe if the 2 lanes of traffic are moving. I mean, essentially, all the same concerns that you just expressed to the people coming out on the south side of the road are going to apply with additional levels of danger because of having to cross the road for the people on the north side.
I don't disagree with you about the conditions out there at all, but we are tied to PennDOT's regulations in terms of where you can put traffic signals and where you cannot. We'll take another look at that. If we can find a warrant that maybe meets some conditions out there, we'll take a look at it. But currently, it doesn't meet any warrants. So you can't apply to PennDOT to put up a traffic signal where there are no warrants met.
So I'm just so curious, did it come up, did the condition of that intersection, other than consideration for a light or not, come up in your discussions as it relates to the development of the preliminary plan?
In terms of how we deal with this corner, it has.
So, I mean, I would hope that you'll revisit that issue so that even if a light is not the answer, that some other answer could be developed to address that condition. Because I'm not hearing that there was a lot of consideration given to the level of danger that's all that traffic that's coming out, the majority of which is going to want to go left towards.
Right. We'll look closely at it through the final design phase. I can't promise you anything that's going to change from this design going forward, but we will look at it more closely. Yes, ma'am.
Can you explain what you mean by the use of the term warrant?
A warrant is a test.
Other than volume.
A warrant is a test that you have to do a certain amount of analysis to prove that you have either the proper enough traffic volume or enough accidents, basically, to suggest that a traffic signal is the answer to the problems out there. Back when the Pep Boys light went in, before warrants were required for all these things and people stuck to them, traffic lights went in whenever everyone had the money to pay for one. And Pep Boys was like, we'd like to have a traffic signal at our entrance. Let's put one up. Okay. That's not how you do it anymore. You have to meet those tests. And we'll look at the whole range of tests that are test warrants that apply to an intersection like this to see if we can find one that maybe would justify a traffic signal. But if you can't justify it to PennDOT, they will not approve it and you can't install it.
It would be a tragedy of the woman.
It had nothing to do with the traffic signal.
It would be a tragedy to not put a signal there and then discover that as a consequence of the road widening and the additional lane, that there are a series of accidents. So why not be proactive, as this man suggests?
Because we're not allowed to. We have to meet those warrants. We cannot put up a traffic signal if PennDOT says you do not meet the warrants.
Crystal, can I jump in real quick?
Sure, please do.
So, just a bit of background for everybody. So PennDOT has jurisdiction over the new signals that go in anywhere in the state. So even though this is our road, if we want to put a signal as part of this project, if anybody want to put a signal as part of this project, even the township, they would have to go to PennDOT, make an application, and get a signal permit. PennDOT's going to look at those warrants, or criteria, as we sometimes call them, and see, does it meet the criteria, does it meet the warrants? And if it doesn't, PennDOT's going to deny it. So even though we may want, under this project, to be proactive, like you suggest, ma'am, it doesn't matter. In the end, PennDOT's got to okay that. It's got to be based on the warrants. And we're not going to be able to get the application to put the signal in. That's the reality, I think, that Crystal's trying to communicate. It's not what we think and what we want. It's we have to go through another authority. If they don't give us the permission to do it, we can't make it happen.
I agree with you. From a safety point of view, another signal here would be a plus. We can examine that going forward. We have the whole final design phase to get through yet when we're going to design all the signals and all that. So we will definitely take a closer look. I cannot make you any promises that it'll happen, but I can promise you we'll take a look. Over here, please.
Just curious, PennDOT has say on all signals in Pennsylvania.
Yes.
Including the one in front of Pep Boys.
That one's an old one, and Philly has its own system.
They have their own system, so PennDOT doesn't have any rights or say about that particular system.
I don't know if that's true or not. Sid?
I mean, I don't know when that signal was put in, so I can't tell you what PennDOT's level of involvement was at the time. As Crystal's saying, if it were going in today, it probably would not have
No,
happened.
that's not my question. My question is whether PennDOT has the authority to decide to put a signal at Northwestern, which might be a trip signal, and take out the signal at Pep Boys.
You're not going to lose that signal of Pep Boys. Pep Boys paid for it.
Pay for it. They pay for it.
One of the things, let's step way back to one of the things we talked about earlier, and the fact that PennDOT is going to try to take over maintenance and management of these traffic signals through this section. If PennDOT's rules have kind of changed through the years and become more strict, I don't know the exact relationship between PennDOT and Philadelphia, so I can't address that. But PennDOT's going to review all the traffic signals coming out of Philadelphia on Ridge Pike. And I'm pretty confident that if they find the Pep Boys signal to be an impediment to traffic flow, they will try to work with Philadelphia to eliminate it. And by the same token, if we suggest that that light maybe it would be better placed at Northwestern where it would have more function, we can have that conversation. Again, I cannot guarantee that that light is going to end up at Northwestern and the one at Pep Boys is going to disappear. I can't make any promises about that whatsoever, but we'll talk to them about that. Right here, please.
I'm just curious, if you're an employee or a pedestrian and you're coming from Meadowview Rehab from the front door, and you want to go to the bus stop because you're a SEPTA rider, right now currently they just jaywalk and cross, right?
Yes.
Because that's closest to their front door.
Right.
Now, if you make them go all the way down to Northwestern Avenue and Philadelphia City line, without a light there, why would they want to cross there?
They wouldn't cross here. They would cross down here where the current traffic signal is. And there is a pedestrian phase in that traffic signal.
That's
That's
quite a long walk.
Well, that's where the bus stops. So they got to get there anyway. That's where the bus stop is. They moved them. To try to influence these people not to cross the middle of Ridge Pike here, we worked with SEPTA to move that bus stop down to the signal where they can cross with the signal. Well,
were you anticipating that these people would also be using the new bus stop being relocated to Manor Road as well?
Most of the people who are going west, there's a bus stop here on this corner of the property for the westbound traffic. Eastbound traffic, the stop is here.
It's on both sides of the street. Right at Pep Boys, you have the bus stop, westbound and eastbound. The next stop, you say you want to put it at Manor Road.
Well, there's already, there's already one here that'll probably stay.
Right, yeah.
It's just on the westbound side, it's a side stop, so there's no signal there. No one needs to cross the street to get there. And it's principally for these guys.
Slow stop there.
Yeah, there is. Right on the corner of their property here, right by the gun shop.
There's a stop there?
Yeah.
Crystal, just a comment on Northwestern, because I live right on the corner. So we see a lot of the traffic there, and we also see Pet Boys traffic. Of course, everybody here would probably agree that Pet Boys doesn't warrant a light. I don't know about whether it can be changed or not. But with when you're going to address this issue, something to take into consideration is the flow of ambulance coming in and out of there. And that if there were a red light there, I can see where the ambulance would have more flow, because now we'll see that the ambulance can't get out there. They're blowing their horn,
And people just don't stop?
And can't get, the traffic doesn't stop. So if there were a red light there,
Gotcha.
this would make it better. And also, there is a lot of fire trucks coming in there now more than before. And I don't know why. Maybe they're getting told. I have no idea.
Do they have a place where they can go to pumper?
Being a nursing home now is a rehab, so maybe it's accidental. I have no idea, but we're seeing more of that.
Okay.
So when you're addressing that, that might be something to talk about, the ambulance.
The regular
ambulance
yeah.
going in and out. So that might make.
We'll take all
That
this.
might give you more of the part that you're looking to address.
Yeah, we'll take all this to PennDOT. We're going to have an extensive PennDOT on signals on this stretch before it's all said and done, so. Okay.
Thanks a lot.
One more question, then we're going to move on.
Be very quick. I believe there's enough of us here who have such concerns about that intersection Northwestern Ave.
Yep.
I know that I'd be happy to volunteer whatever I can to help with the process, the other neighbors would, can you please call on us?
Well, when the time comes that we have to do traffic counts again for this road we'll let you know, and you can all drive in and out all day and drive it along. I don't mean to make light of it. We understand it as a serious issue, and honestly, we stood there one day and watched a worker from Meadowview, walk here, walk to the middle of the road, stand on this gore stripe while cars like whizzed by front and back, until someone in this lane stopped suddenly to let her cross, and behind that person were 4 more cars that all stopped short.
Which is what I do, because you can't cross at that point if you're a pedestrian.
Well, you can now. There's a signal there with a pedestrian phase, so it should work. But believe me, I understand your concerns. I had those concerns myself when I was out there. When we talked to PennDOT about the warrants and the signalization coordination for this whole corridor, we will be talking about this end of the project and seeing if we can't rearrange this somehow to make more sense. Can't promise you it'll happen, but that's what we'll try to do. This gentleman here had his...
There's 2 things. On Northwestern, we're coming out there, and I understand everybody's issue. But why couldn't they actually take a road and cut up behind Friends parking lot, connect the driveway to Pep Boys for the people through there, to utilize the traffic?
All these things are possible. It's private property. Generally, private property doesn't like you know.
Commercial company, they may be willing to do something. And second of all, they need street lighting on Ridge Pike is the biggest problem, because it's so dark there, you can't see through there.
Okay.
That's the biggest problem.
We haven't really talked about...
You got all the traffic.
Yeah, we haven't really talked about traffic, street lights too much in this process, but that's something we'll get into in the final design. Hold on one second. Did you have a question, ma'am?
I was just going to say, would it not be smart to invite PennDOT to these meetings so that at least a
They're invited. They're invited. Yes, sir.
I'm going in a different direction here. I can't tell whether or not you're going to need to take out any trees on the south side of Ridge Pike.
The way the grading is currently, probably some of the trees will need to be replaced when we're done. These are all the things that we need to talk about. Because we are grading on the Eagle View side there. Okay. This was supposed to be a short presentation. So here's our schedule. Last year when you were here, we were at this point. Now we're almost at the end of our preliminary design phase. We are going to move into final design here very shortly, and that's going to take us all the way through the end of 2019. At this point out here, towards the end of 2019, that's when we'll be talking to folks about right-of-way acquisitions. So up until that point, we won't have anything to share with you, because we don't want to really talk about right-of-way until we know exactly what it is we need. We don't want to take more than we need. We don't want to come back to you a second time if we need more. So we want to make sure our plans are complete and accurate before we talk to folks about right-of-way. Then we get our contractor on board, and construction will start in 2020. We're looking at probably close to 3 years total construction time. The bulk of that will likely be in the first 2 years. We have to maintain traffic throughout construction. It would be great if we could just close the road and rebuild it in 6 months and be done, but then you'd never be able to get in and out of your homes for 6 months, so we can't do that. So we have to maintain traffic. If we get really good weather through the winter time, if we get really fair winter weather, the contractors can keep working and move the project forward faster. That has happened recently with the Lafayette Street projects and the Ridge Pike projects at the other end. So we're hopeful that that's the case, but I'm not going to lie to you and tell you it's going to be quick and easy. It's going to be likely 3 years of noise and dirt and aggravation and all that. Yes, sir?
East to west or west to east?
That's all going to be decided in the final design phase. We will have to, in this section, we will have to determine our construction phasing. So there are a couple different ways we can construct the road. We could do all one side end to end, and then flip traffic and do the other side end to end. Or we could do sections back and forth. there's a lot of different ways to figure this out. We have a lot of utilities to coordinate with along the corridor. They have some kind of say, a little bit of say in terms of what our phasing needs to be, because they need to do their stuff first for the most part. I do want to say that sometime in early 2019, I'm going to invite you all back again for another open house. We'll have a lot more of the final details to share with you at that point. And we'll know more about the signal program by then as well. Whether they'll be here with us or not, I can't say, but we should have had several conversations with them by that time. And we'll go forward from there. Yes, ma'am.
Is this construction going to be done during regular daylight hours, or is it going to be done at night, like when they repave the road?
That all still has to be worked out. If you would prefer that we work in the evening to keep the construction process shorter, we can we can wrap that into the contract. That way it shortens the overall construction time, so you're impacted less time, but more daily time. And it sounds like that's not preferred.
I need my sleep.
Yeah. So it probably would not happen at night. It would be daytime. Back here.
I wonder if it might be possible to work with the city of Philadelphia, Big If, to provide access along River Road, along the river, down by the Meekline train station and towards Shawmont, to alleviate some of the congestion, inevitable and probably unbearable congestion that's going to occur on Ridge Pike. Because at one point, not long ago, it was possible to get into the city along River Road, and then the residents there complained, and so it's now closed just below the Meekline station.
Okay.
The residents who live along that road have the key to the gate. And I think fire and safety.
Gotcha. I know what you're talking about.
As well.
Yeah.
But I'd like to suggest that you try to open negotiations with the city to provide some limited access, maybe just during rush hour.
Yeah. We can try talking to them about that. Again, I can't guarantee anything about that. Any other? Yes, ma'am.
It says Crescent Avenue to Philadelphia, but at the beginning of the presentation, you mentioned that the Crescent Avenue.
It's still generally Crescent.
Okay.
Hmm.
So the timeline is still
That has nothing to do with, that won't change the timeline. Changing that little piece at the end, we still have the same timeline.
Is there anything being done to Crescent Ave? Not on this piece?
Not on this piece. It'll all be wrapped into the Section F piece that's the next piece out the door. Yes, ma'am.
My understanding is that they left being prohibited on Church Road, that may have the potential to impact the traffic significantly on Crescent Road. Are there any plans to involve that intersection at this juncture in any way, or is that completely off the table until the next phase?
The lefts onto Church Road will not be restricted until Crescent Avenue is completed. The signal at Crescent Avenue is completed. So we can't close off a left turn unless we provide the alternative at the same time. So westbound traffic will be prohibited to turn left on Harts because we're addressing that whole section of roadway and Barron Hill. But the left turns, eastbound left turns onto Church will not be restricted until the Section F project goes forward with including Crescent Avenue. So as part of that engineering, we'll determine what we need to do at Crescent Avenue and at Germantown to accommodate, because you're right, there's not a lot of people who make the left onto Church, but it is going to rearrange traffic flow a little bit, and we'll take a look at that also. Yes, John?
Did you just say you were restricting left turns on Barron Hill also?
No. They'll have to turn left onto Barron Hill. Yes, ma'am.
Does PennDOT have public meetings when they're going to make changes, or they're not required to do that?
We're not required to either.
No, I know, okay, I know, but there's not any public opportunity for public input when they're considering putting in signals and left turn lanes and...
Some of their projects they're required to have public meetings for, like if they're taking a bridge out and replacing a bridge, they will come to a public supervisors meeting and be available for questions about the detour and all. But generally, if it's a PennDOT project, no, not required. Yes, ma'am.
The distance between Church Road and Crescent Avenue is negligible, for lack of a better word. It's maybe 200 yards. It's downhill if you're going west on Ridge. What are the parameters for a traffic lights, a distance between each other and grade and blah, blah, blah? Because
All that gets factored into the engineering of the signal, and we are planning on connecting them together, so they will, all the signals in this stretch will operate as one functioning system. So you shouldn't be able to like go through one and get stopped short at a red light at the next one. You should get a good progression through that section. Even though it's downhill, yeah, it should be fine. Yes, sir.
As part of this timeline, when would you expect that you'd be meeting with those affected and the property being taken, et cetera, to develop mitigation plans?
We're going to be working through the final design, and once we know better kind of what our right-of-way needs are going to be, then we will start to talk with folks about what we can do to help ease the pain of that right-of-way acquisition. We don't really come to you with an offer, a right-of-way acquisition offer, until the end of the process when we've already had a couple conversations.
I understand. So your best guess would be, I'm moving your mitigation in terms of plantings or whatever you're going to do. So about what would be your best guess when you're...
All that happens as part of the right-of-way negotiation at the end.
And that would be...
Mid to late 2019. Sir?
Let me get one question. Would it be possible to have slow down 35-mile-an-hour signs?
You could put up signs till you're blue in the face and it doesn't do a thing for the people who want to speed.
Grooves in the road, like they have to turn like that.
Can we put them in front of your house?
No, slow down.
You won't want them there after about 10 minutes.
Slow the traffic down, because I think this road at 35 miles an hour is a lot safer than it is at 60.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I'm not sure if that's a possibility or not. Yeah, yeah. Yes, sir.
Are you going to have an engineer that for years? Are you going to have an engineer talk a little bit or no?
Well, if you have questions that you want to ask specifically to the engineers, yeah, fire away.
Well, the question, in my opinion, the biggest problem is where it goes from 2 lanes to 1 lane to 2 lanes again. And from what I see out there, the problem is the roadway's not wide enough in that stretch, like inches, to make it 4 lane. It used to be 4 lane. I haven't lived here most of my life. It used to be 4 lanes. Then it got squeezed down to 3 lanes because by inches. Is the engineer here, how many inches are you lacking there to keep or put that back to 4 lanes? Or 2 lanes?
When it went to 4 lanes, that was a temporary situation because of work on this expressway. It wasn't? Before that?
Before that.
Well, yeah, unfortunately, it probably take a little bit of whole lots, like 6 or 8 inches over their front yard, but that's about it, because it's only that one stretch from Church to Manor, or Church to Barron Hill, that's the problem. If you make that 4 lanes again, all this, save this county a whole bunch of money.
What we are required to do at this point is we have minimal lane widths that we're required to use. I think when it was 4 lanes, the lanes might have been 8, they were pretty narrow. Yeah, they were 8 feet wide. We're not allowed to do that anymore.
Well, okay, you take a little bit of the curve lane up a whole lot, yeah, because you put it on the north side. I'm sorry there.
That's okay.
They would break that back into 2 lanes each way there.
Yeah.
That's eliminating 90% of that problem, right?
Well, we're trying to take as little property as we possibly can to widen the road. I agree with you there. We want to keep that to a minimum. We're required to have certain lane widths. We're required to have a certain clearance on the outside. We're required to do a certain amount of stormwater management and grading to accommodate that stuff. So I understand that the road used to be 4 lanes, but that wasn't a particularly safe format for that road either. And back then, you probably had, I don't know, a lot less traffic. on this road.
Well,
It's 30,000 cars a day.
I know, I live on Ridge Pike, right at Ridge Church. I live on that hill.
Okay.
And it got backed up my hill over.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
We're Chestnut.
Yep.
And the problem is because they're back into one lane there. Like I say, take your parking lot out. I'm probably talking about that much. If an engineer could tell me exactly how wide each lane has to be, it's not that much, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
The lane needs to be 11 feet. How wide is that roadway?
And there's a curve.
Okay, how wide is that roadway? But no, see, there's a curve there. Okay, I understand. But what you're saying is, instead of taking out a curve, you're taking out 12 feet to make it, take all the wiggle rooms out.
We're trying to make this as safe a road as possible, and to do that, we have to do a little more widening than the barest minimum that you're talking about to just squeeze in 4 lanes. That would not be a very safe road.
You would take all that congestion.
Except when there's accidents, and there'd be lots of them.
That
We're working hard to get 4 lanes. There will be 4 lanes, and we're going to take as little property as we possibly can to make this a safe 21st century roadway with a sidewalk for pedestrians, stormwater management so it doesn't flood. We're restricted in how little we can do. Once you're in, you're kind of in with both feet, you know. One more question.
I would like to hear from the engineer about the impact of the signalization at Barron Hill and Ridge. The impact on the congestion that backs up toward the river from Ridge on Barron Hill.
Okay. Paul, do you want to address that?
I believe that when it's fully operational, you will not have to wait more than one traffic cycle to get through that.
How long is the traffic cycle?
90 seconds. Probably 90 seconds. No more than 120 seconds. I get you to go from the Hart Lane intersection to progress up Barron Hill. It seems like, 20 minutes? It seems like an eternity, doesn't it? Well, that was you weren't going to back up. You just arrived at the traffic signal. You might have 1 to 2 cars ahead of you that got the green line, and you didn't make the green line. So you're stuck in red, and then you wait for your green, and you go. So that's 90 seconds.
And how many cars come through that intersection currently coming from Barron Hill, making that right turn onto?
10,000. 10,000 a day.
Every minute, hour, how do you want to know?
Daily.
Daily? 10,000 vehicles combined, northbound, southbound. So 5,000 northbound,
The signals also are going to be what are called adaptive traffic signals, meaning that they respond to traffic, so that the timing and even the phasing of the signal can be adjusted to account for what's going on at that moment. As Paul is saying, they're all going to be designed so that if you drive the speed limit, you should not have to stop unless there's an incident of some kind that forces more traffic. And as Crystal was saying, one of the reasons PennDOT wants to take over these signals is if there is something bad on the School Expressway and KYW tells you to go on to Ridge Pike, PennDOT will be able to go in and control all of the signals along Ridge Pike and make an adjustment on the fly, as it were, to improve the situation because of the increased traffic. Right now, Ridge Pike goes from the county into the city, so the county controls some signals, the township controls some signals, the city controls some of the signals. PennDOT is proposing to take control of all of those so they can make that entire corridor flow better in the case of an emergency.
And in a similar vein, does PennDOT have the authority to open River Road in the event that they are diverting traffic from the expressway to Ridge?
I don't know if River Road is a state road.
The River Road is owned by the city.
It's a city road, all right. So the city has the jurisdiction of the road, and the city has to allow traffic to go down it. That would be a question for the city.
That's a very good question. Does PennDOT control Pet Boys Light and Light Bells Mill Road, though?
They would control all of the signals along that stretch of bridge.
All the way to Henry Avenue and...
No, once this project is incorporated.
Right now, they're planning to go, But the idea is that they have control across the municipalities to address traffic in case of an emergency.
I was just saying, the point is that there's stops at
Right, that's one of their goals, is to get control of an entire long corridor.
That's right.
So would that also include with closing one lane bridge, a huge issue? So would they also have control of something like that?
I don't know that they've determined the exact limits of how far they would go, but the goal is to control enough so that it makes a difference.
Beyond the short term, the long term?
Well, it's long term, maybe a long length. It's not a long, the control for them is long term. They would take over control of that.
No, I'm saying if there's like the Laurel Plain Bridge causes huge problems on the bridge. So, and that was, almost a year more. So my question is, does that also include not the short-term issue, like an emergency, and that also control the lights when there's a long-term construction?
Yeah, they would control the lights in perpetuity.
Yeah.
So if some small event happens, or some long-term event, like some other construction project happens, they would control the signals for that too.
Okay.
I just want to clarify for everybody as well, that what we're talking about is an effort that PennDOT has programmed money for. It's about $125 million over the next 5 or 6 years. It includes a bunch of different things on Schuylkill Expressway, some other things related to trails and transit, but there's a piece of that that is being dedicated to upgrading all the signals on parallel routes to the Schuylkill Expressway. What that means is two major ones and a bunch of minor ones. The two major ones are Ridge Pike and Conshohocken State Road, PA23 in the Lower Merion. Both of those parallel the Schuylkill Expressway all the way from Philadelphia out to King of Prussia. So those two routes, plus some other cross streets, most of them in Upper Merion, so not near here. That's what PennDOT is going to, on this pilot project, take a look at the ownership, maintenance, and in the short term upgrades so that they can control these things for all those roads. So I want to make sure everybody knows that two things. Number one, we have to work with that project. They haven't started designing that yet, but our project is going to be in final design at the same time they are in design. We have to make sure that we are working with them. So a lot of the things that Crystal has talked about in terms of the signal design may change. We may, for instance, and this is not a promise, this is just a recognition of reality possibly, that they may come in and they may look and say, Philly, your Pep Boys signal does not meet warrants anymore. They may make that signal go away. At the same time, it may say, you know, if we can certainly prove to them that Northwestern does meet warrants, and they may require a signal to go there. They may require a signal to vote, they may require a signal to none. We don't know yet. But we have to work with them hand in hand through that process to make sure that both of our projects work together. And the other thing that I want to make sure everybody takes away in regards to signals is that we are talking about Ridge Pike, and as Sid mentioned, the management of these signals during times of emergency or really anything that might pop up over the long term. But it's not like if the Schuylkill Expressway goes down, that everybody is going to be good on Ridge Pike, and you're going to have 100,000 cars each day on Ridge Pike. They're going to go lots of places, including PA23. Matter of fact, probably a lot of them will go to PA23, because if you're on the Schuylkill, it's a lot easier to get to Conshohocken State Road than it is to get across the river to get to Ridge Pike. So that traffic will be balanced out, will not come all through these neighborhoods, and these are part of some of the bigger issues that we have to work with through design. So when we come back out in a couple of years, there may be some things that you see different because we are working on the fly with PennDOT on these other initiatives.
Okay. We're going to stick around here until 8 o'clock, but I'm going to wrap up the presentation. There's Matt's contact information. There's my contact information. This is the steering committee folks from the local governments who have been working with us on this. You can go to the ridgepikeproject.com website. You can find out information. Everything we talked about here tonight will get uploaded to that eventually, as soon as we can get it in a proper form. You can call me anytime if you got questions, things you want to talk about. And we're going to stick around for another 10 minutes if you want to have questions for the specific engineers, but that is the end of the formal presentation.
Thank you.